I'm Dan Farber, editor-in-chief at CBSNews.com, and I'm joined by Seth Doane, CBS News correspondent, working on the Chilean mine disaster story. So what's the latest news on the Chilean mine disaster?
Well, the latest news, the president of Chile picked up the phone and spoke with the leader, the shift leader of the mine, the miners who were stuck down there, offered their support. The Chilean president says his phone has been ringing off the hook, receiving calls of well wishes from other state leaders around the world. Miners are still trapped. They're waiting. They have not been told how long they will be there.
What's the reason not to tell them? Is it just not to get their hopes up?
Exactly. That's what we hear, that getting the hopes up of the miners at this point would be a bad idea. They are likely euphoric after a 17-day wait deep down underground, wondering if they were going to be found, and they're probably living off of that euphoria right now. So it's my understanding that officials are not really wanting to break the news to them yet, that it could be up to 120 days. That's the official deadline or timeline that they've set out, that it could take to drill, to bore down to them.
Now, I understand that NASA has been asked to help out. They certainly have a lot of experience with astronauts and people, in confined spaces for long periods of time. So what kind of advice do you think that NASA could offer?
Well, I don't work for NASA, so I don't know, but this has been likened to a lot of confined spaces, a prison, a spaceship, a nuclear submarine, a space where people would be very confined for a very long period of time. Local media was also reporting that Chilean officials were reaching out to try to understand what type of food to feed these people, these miners who are living in a confined space, and it would make sense that they would reach out to someone like NASA for that. What small, compact food could be fed. Part of this in the beginning here is just trying to get the miners' stomachs back up and working again. In essence, they've been down there. You saw the reports that they were sharing spoonfuls of tuna, sharing half of a biscuit or half of a cup of milk over the first couple of days. So they haven't eaten much.
You really don't want to get sick down there.
Yeah, you don't want to get sick down there.
Now, part of from watching lots of NASA video and astronauts in space, one of the things that they're always super busy. So how do you think, what do you think the plan is in terms of how do you keep these miners, these 33 people in 500 square feet, busy and occupied in a way that they just won't freak out?
Well, we spoke with one gentleman from the United Mine Workers yesterday on the phone, and he said maybe they end up dropping playing cards or something like that. They've already dropped little LED lights so that the miners have some illumination down there. They were going off battery power, tapping into the batteries of trucks that are down there in the mine, but that was obviously going away. So one of the first things they sent down, along with that glucose, along with the medicine for their stomachs, were little LED lights. So it's likely they would send along something like playing cards to kind of keep their minds entertained. They have set up this communication channel, so they will be able to communicate with members of their family. We understand right now it's a very limited number of family members who will be able to contact them, but there is some communication established, so that goes a long way. But can you imagine being down in the space? That's the big question everyone is wondering. One thing I want to say, though, is there's been a lot of talk about this refuge chamber, this roughly 500 square foot refuge chamber that's likened to the size of a small studio apartment, like the one in which I live. They are not stuck only to that space. There is some maneuverability below where the mine collapsed. There are these channels, kind of like the Guggenheim, spiraling channels, where the refuge is a little area reinforced just off of that. It's likely, United Mine Worker guy told us, that the doors from the refuge chamber are still open because it's not a toxic area in a gold and copper mine.
Yeah, from what I understand, they've used a backhoe to get water, and so there's about a mile path that they can go on down there. But this whole question of the geology, and I know you've written something about the math of this whole situation in terms of how soon or how easy will it be to bore that 26-inch hole?
Yeah, this is one thing that if you do, I'm no math whiz, but if you do the simple math and what's being reported as the Chilean official estimate of how aggressive they would like to drill, how much they would like to drill, some reports say it's between 20 and 30 meters, that's 65 to 100 feet a day. Well, the miners are 2,300 feet roughly underground. So it would seem if they're getting up to 100 feet a day of drilling progress made, even if that's roughly 5 weeks of drilling, not 120 days. So accounting for some days where maybe the drill's stuck or stopped or you go in the wrong direction, it still has a lot of people scratching their heads wondering, well, how do you get that 120 days, that figure?
Well, we'll be following this story as it goes on, and appreciate your spending time with us.
Absolutely. Thanks.
I've been speaking with Seth Doane from CBS News. For CBSNews.com, I'm Dan Farber. Thanks for watching.